and that they are in fact present. Just want to remind everybody we have a little bit of a change of pace this morning in terms of participation. We're going to ask that when you're participating actively due to new guidance concerning electronic meeting activity that you turn on your video when you're participating actively. And so please be prepared to do that. So I'll
Dodd, you're muted.
Okay. Welcome. This is the Stormwater Management Committee meeting call to order for October 1st, 2020. I want to welcome everyone for being here today. Appreciate staff and our participants for being here and for helping us conduct this meeting electronically in an orderly way. I'm going to request that everyone this morning turn on their audio when they're participating actively. And we'll tell you a little bit more about that in a few minutes due to some new guidelines for electronic meeting. So we're going to start this morning by asking each commissioner to identify themselves by name and that they are in fact present. So please turn on your audio when you identify yourself. So I'll start this morning with Ms. Carrie Stokes.
Carrie Stokes, present.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Stokes. Mr. Dale.
Roy Dale, present.
Thank you, Mr. Dale. Ms. Maddox.
Anna Maddox, present.
Thank you, Ms. Maddox. Ms. Adams-Taylor.
Renette Adams-Taylor, present.
Thank you very much. Okay, so everyone is here and accounted for, and the chair is marked as present as well. I'm Dodd Galbraith, and I want to welcome everybody again to today's Stormwater Management Committee meeting, October 1st, 2020. So our first item of business is to let the public know that you can call in to participate in commenting on our hearing today. But we want to ask all of our participants who are on the line currently to be sure and mute their mics when they're not speaking. And so that number for the call in is 629-255-1919, 629-255-1919. You'll be put in a queue when you call. You will not be asked to speak in any particular order, whether you're for or against the proposals that we're reviewing today. So just stand by when you call in if you want to be sure and get in the queue, and then you'll be called up when it's your time to offer your comments. Okay, so our next item of business is that we need to ask our legal counsel, Ms. Costonis, to remind us of the legal authority behind having an electronic meeting, and then I'll ask for a motion.
Hi, I'm Teresa Costonis. So we are going to have a little bit of a different electronic meeting today. We're proceeding today under the authority of Executive Order 60, whereas previously we'd been doing it under Executive Order 16 as extended by 34 and 51. And these are all governor's executive orders. So Executive Order 60 has some slightly different requirements than some of the other previous electronic meeting executive orders did. The one that's going to affect you all the most is the one that the chair already mentioned, which is that if you participate by audio only, every single time you speak, you must clearly identify who you are. And this rule will apply not just to members of the committee, but to members of the public, participants, staff, to everyone speaking on the call so that someone watching can observe. Other changes are maybe more directed at Metro Nashville network in that this meeting is required to both be accessible via live stream in real time and be recorded and provided online within 48 hours, whereas previously had kind of an either or for those two options. If the live stream was unavailable, you could make it available subsequently via video, and that will no longer be allowed. Another perhaps slightly more obscure new requirement is that if you have anyone present in the room with you as you participate remotely, you are supposed to identify who those people in the room with you are. Let me see if I'm forgetting any other provisions that apply. So I think that those are the main ones that are going to affect you during the meeting itself. But if I think of anything as we go along that we need to address, I will be sure to raise my hand and mention it. And mainly the one I want you all to keep in mind is if you are not participating by video, be sure to clearly identify yourself as you speak. The roll call voting is also required. We've always required it, so that's not really new to us. And there's some other things that we've sort of always done that are not really new to us. All of the members of the committee are supposed to have all of the materials that are going to be shown in the meeting previously sent to them. That's another one. So hopefully you all have been sent the voluminous materials by email. But I think that's pretty much it. So please, if you start speaking in your audio only, let's all try to catch each other and remind each other to identify ourselves.
Thank you, Ms. Costonis. And if you wouldn't mind, if you could send out an email with a list of all those new conditions, I think that would be greatly appreciated, at least to the committee members. And it might be a good idea if staff could provide that to all the participants and panelists as well.
I'll be glad to.
Thank you. And I've got one question concerning those who might be present in the room, Ms. Costonis. Would that apply to even, just kind of cursory participants who, like a child or a spouse, if someone's working from home, or does it only apply to active participants?
So I'm not exactly sure the answer to that question, Mr. Chair. I think that the concern that they're probably, the policy concern that's probably underlying that requirement is that they probably want committee members not to be being coached by someone in the room, which obviously wouldn't be the case. Like I don't feel the need to disclose that my dog is in the room with me currently, but so I mean, I think if it's, a toddler playing on the floor, maybe not, or someone just passing through in the background, maybe not. But if somebody is sitting in and listening in to the meeting with you, then I feel like you probably ought to disclose who they are.
Thank you. That's an excellent clarification, because these are, of course, quasi-judicial proceedings. And so it's not like we have someone sitting on our shoulder in the jury box telling us how to listen to the evidence being presented. So appreciate that clarification. All right. So at this time, I'd like to ask if someone would like to make a motion to approve or to formalize the fact that we're meeting electronically according to Executive Order 60, if I understood that correctly. All right, Ms. Ronad Adams-Taylor, you're recognized.
I will make the motion, and thank you so much. I move that the meeting electronically is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 outbreak.
All right, thank you, Ms. Adams-Taylor, for that motion. Do we have a second? Ms. Stokes, you're recognized.
I second the motion.
All right, motion been made, properly seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll proceed with a roll call vote. Ms. Stokes, how do you vote?
Yes.
All right, Ms. Stokes vote yes. Mr. Dale, how do you vote?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Dale votes yes. Ms. Maddox, how do you vote?
Yes.
All right, Ms. Maddox votes yes. Ms. Adams Taylor, how do you vote?
Yes.
All right, Ms. Adams Taylor votes yes. And as chair, I'm Dodd Galbraith. I vote yes. All right, we have a unanimous motion. Motion passes as presented. Okay, so our next item of business is to approve the August 6, 2020 meeting minutes and decision letters. Again, I'd like to encourage all of the committee members to take a moment and just review those minutes again and those decision letters. I know you've gotten them prior to the meeting, and so if you would, please look for any edits or corrections that you'd like to make. It's always a welcome motion if you would be willing to, and if it's not too complicated, to integrate the approval of the minutes and decision letters in the same motion. So we'll just pause for a second, and I'll look for someone's hand to be raised when they're ready to be recognized for a motion. Ms. Stokes, is your hand raised to make a motion, or is that a previous hand raise?
That was actually from before, but I've reviewed the minutes and decision letters, and I'm ready to make a motion to approve as presented.
All right, thank you, Ms. Stokes. We have a motion to approve both the minutes and decision letters. Is there a second? Ms. Ronat Adams Taylor.
A second.
All right, thank you, Ms. Adams Taylor. So motion has been made and properly seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve the minutes and decision letters for our August 6, 2020 Stormwater Committee meeting? All right, Ms. Doan, you're recognized.
Yes, this is Rebecca Doan. Are you approving August 6th, 2020 letters or September 3rd, 2020 letters?
I'm very sorry. We should be approving the September decision letters and minutes. For some reason, my script has August 6th. So let's clarify if the motion was made to approve the minutes and decision letters for September. Ms. Stokes.
Yes, I'll clarify. The motion was to approve the minutes and decision letters from our September 3rd meeting.
Okay, all right. And Ms. Ronat Adams Taylor, do you accept that clarification in your second? Okay.
Yes, I
Our
do.
motion has been made and properly seconded for our September, is it 3rd, 2020? Because I don't have that date in front of me right now. So did I hear that correctly? September 3rd?
Yes, that's correct.
Well, thank you very much. All right, so we have a motion made and proper second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing no hands raised, we'll take a roll call vote. Thank you, Ms. Doan, for clarifying that for us. So we'll start with Ms. Stokes. How do you vote on the motion to approve minutes and decision letters? All right, Ms. Stokes votes yes. Mr. Dale?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Dale votes yes. Ms. Maddox?
Yes.
All right, Ms. Maddox votes yes. Ms. Adams Taylor?
Yes.
All right, Ms. Adams Taylor votes yes, and I'm Dodd Galbraith, and I vote yes as well. All right, so we have minutes and decision letters for September 3rd approved unanimously. So if someone would be willing to signify voted yes as well on the roll call vote, I appreciate that. Okay, so our next item of business is to hear our first case and our only case of today. So I'm going to ask Mr. Bowman to read our legal statement and and then we'll ask Mr. Mishu to make a 2-minute verbal presentation. I want to remind the public if you have the opportunity to call in at 629-255-1919, 629-255-1919. You'll wait in a queue. You will not speak in order of either for or against. So just be prepared when you're queued up to state your case. You'll need to do it within 2 minutes, and then we'll proceed with our committee discussion. All right, Mr. Bowman, you're recognized.
Good morning. This is Logan Bowman with Metro Development Services. I'm in the same room as Steve Mishu with Metro Development Services. The opening statement to the applicant. If you are not satisfied with a decision made by the Stormwater Management Committee, you may appeal the decision by filing for a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the committee's decision. You are advised to seek the independent advice of legal counsel to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been satisfied.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Appreciate that. All right, so our first case is 2020-00014, the Mansion of Fontanelles, and Mr. Mishu, we recognize to give us a presentation of the proposal. All right, so maybe having a little bit of audio trouble. I know we did a sound check earlier with Mr. Mishu. So, Ms. Gilbert, do you have an update on where we are?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you are, Mr. Mishu. Mr. Bowman, if you would mute your mic, please, unless Mr. Mishu is using your mic.
I am using the mic. Do you hear an
Thanks,
echo
sir.
as well?
Yeah, we are hearing a little bit of echo, so that probably means you have an extra mic going somewhere. And when you do get to a point where you can speak, Mr. Mishu, just please clearly identify yourself, since it doesn't look like you all have video. All right, so while we're working out the audio, I'll just remind the public they can call in at 629-255-1919. That's posted on the screen currently. You're going to be queued up. You'll wait in the queue until called upon to make your remarks, and maybe on the phone quite a while if you call in early, because we'll have quite a bit of discussion before we open it up for a public hearing for the public to participate. But you're welcome to listen in on our discussion until time to speak. All right, so do we have Mr. Mishu ready to go? Okay.
All right, Mr. Chairman, Steve's having some trouble, so I'm going to go ahead and read the opening statement. This is Logan Bowman at Metro Development Services.
Thank you, Logan.
I'm going to read his case summary.
Thank you.
It's case number. The case on the agenda is case number 2020-00014, the Mansion at Fontanelle, APN 0400009300, 0400016300, 049001400, 04900020001 and 04900031900. 4225 Whites Creek Pike. Inspector is Boots O'Hara. Council District 3, Jennifer Gamble. Approval of preliminary plans was granted under variance number 2020-0007 on July 2nd, 2020 to allow the following: stream and stream buffer disturbance, floodway and floodway buffer disturbance, uncompensated fill, continuous mowing and maintenance of the buffer. Applicant's request is to allow the following: disturbance of the floodway, Zone 1 and Zone 2 buffers, disturbance of the stream, Zone 1 and Zone 2 buffers, multiple crossings within 1,000 feet, continuous mowing and maintenance of the buffer. Appellant is Blue Road Fontanelle LLC, represented by Clay Wallace, Energy Land and Infrastructure. Comments: Stormwater staff. Staff recommends that proposed buffer areas for parking be consolidated/lessened as possible to the minimum area needed, with remaining buffer areas left to function as undisturbed riparian buffers. Staff recommends against approvals for new special event activities within the site's stream buffer, as they could lead to pollutant loading, buffer area compaction, and additional turf grass areas within the buffer. Codes had no comment provided. Planning approved. Greenways, no comment provided.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bowman. So at this time, I want to ask the applicant to about a 10-minute maximum overview of what you're proposing today. Please keep in mind that I think the committee had some specific requests in our last discussion on this topic. I know one of the things we asked for was for kind of a comparison of previous variance criteria versus changes to those criteria that you're proposing today. And we also appreciate any other additional information that you want to present. So after we hear from the applicant, we'll hear from the public. We'll have a public hearing, and then we'll close the public hearing and have committee comments. So ask the applicant to identify themselves, including all resource persons who may be called upon for additional clarifying information, or who can answer specific technical questions based upon their unique technical expertise. So if you identify yourself as the speaker or presenter, and also your other team members at the same time, then you may proceed, and I'll start your clock after you finish your introductions. All right. So who will be presenting today?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is John Haas with Edge Planning, Landscape Architecture, and Urban Design. I'm representing Blue Road Ventures. I have the client, Tim Farrell, on the phone with me today, available to answer questions, as well as Clay Wallace from Energy, Land, and Infrastructure in regards to technical questions.
And do you have anybody else in the room with you other than those individuals?
No one else in the room. I believe Tom White was going to try to join. I don't know if he was, I can't tell if he's on or not. And it looks as if Councilwoman Gamble is on the phone. While she may not be a formal part of our team, we consider her part of our team. We've worked with her very closely.
All right, thank you, Mr. Haas. You may proceed, and your time starts now.
Okay, if you can go to the first slide, Rebecca. What we try to do is exactly as you identified. If you recall, we were before you in July working with Stormwater in an effort to simplify and consolidate some past variances into one variance for the record. During that meeting, there were 5 particular items that were identified by the committee. We've satisfied all of those and gone through and met your request. One is that we have simplified the request in working with Stormwater, and part of that will be in this presentation today. I do have that comparison chart, which was also a part of your packet, I believe. Another was that we have a community meeting, which we did. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 community members were in attendance at a Zoom meeting that lasted a little over an hour. It was hosted by Councilwoman Gamble. We were able to answer all the questions in regards to the floodway, some specific questions that were in regards to floodway fill, which we are not doing. We are not asking for uncompensated fill. We are not doing anything to impact the elevations within the floodway or floodway buffer. The third item there was clearly state any hardships. We've done that in the packet, but I think the one hardship that has come through multiple times as we've gone through this variance request is we've got a site with some severe topo and is heavily wooded on a majority of the site. The rest of the site is essentially floodway and floodway buffer. There is a small portion along Whites Creek Pike that is outside the floodway buffer and outside the floodplain. The event center and the amphitheater, when it was approved by Metro, it was with the understanding that it would need approximately, at the time, 2,500 parking spaces. Part of our hardship is that in order to implement those 2,500 parking spaces in some way other than temporarily in the floodway would mean that we would remove those trees, a large portion of those trees, do some severe grading on these slopes to get that parking in a permanent fashion in the form of asphalt on something that is only used temporarily and occasionally throughout the year. So we think that hardship also makes the most sense in terms of the health and well-being of Whites Creek and the associated tributaries with Whites Creek. Number 4 was to meet with parks and work through parks on greenways. I'm happy to say we've done that multiple times. We've worked out an agreement. I believe Metro's attorney is there and was notified late last night of the agreement. But we have an agreement in place with them, and we're happy to say that that includes a potential in form of an easement granting for the greenway to continue throughout this property from end to end, which is a big deal, as well as our client paying for a bridge connection. Lastly, images of where the bungalow are placed. I'll try to get to those if we can. I've got those, but they are in your packet. If you can go to the next slide, please. So this is how I tried to simplify it. There are a number of variances. We are not changing any of the variances, but working with Stormwater, they wanted us to leave previous variance requests in this packet for the record. So there was some confusion about uncompensated fill and so on. Those are old and have been carried out and addressed and mitigated. The variances in yellow are the ones that we are requesting to amend. And the first variance, 001, we're actually requesting to reduce our area of parking as well as increase the natural vegetation around the stream. Number 2, again, this is a case where there's, item B1, this is a case where there's already disturbance within that buffer. It's in some disrepair. We've got photos of that if we can get to them, but it's an opportunity to basically repair, replace, and improve that area with some minor impacts to the zone 2 stream buffer in the form of piers. These buildings are not on foundations, they're on piers, so actually water will continue to roll underneath them. And then lastly, the 2 road crossings. This was a variance which was issued previously. It expired when there was a change to the format of the resort. We're asking for that to be reinstated. No real changes there other than a pedestrian path crossing that wasn't on there previously, but we've also reduced the amount of asphalt that's required by the fire marshal. So we've improved that situation as well. You can go to the next slide. This is the comparison chart, and you'll see some numbers there in terms of what we were impacting or how much area we were using in the floodway previously. What it translates to are those numbers in red. With this amended variance, we are requesting 600 less parking spaces on a temporary basis, which translates essentially to about 10 acres, almost 30% reduction in the area that we are mowing. That in turn translates back to 10.5 acres that's returned to natural vegetation along this stream and along the floodway buffer. That's a major difference. We've got graphics to demonstrate that if we can get to it. In regards to 0014 and the stream buffer near the lagoon or the previous stage, Again, we've reduced the area of impervious area within the stream buffer, as well as we are restoring approximately 20,000 square feet of natural vegetation, which the current variance allows us to mow. You can also see that we're reducing that mowed area by quite a bit, by about 12,000 square feet. So we're doing some additional mitigation on top of that. And then lastly, within the road extension up to the mansion, we have reduced the width of that road from 20 foot with 2 foot shoulders to 16 foot with 2 foot shoulders at the approval of the fire marshal, which translates into about 8,000 square foot less area of disturbance. So all in all three of these, we consider major improvements to the variances that are in place. And we really worked hard with parks and stormwater to work towards those reductions. You can go to the next slide, please. In addition to that, for those impacts, we are proposing additional mitigation to the mitigation that's already taken place out there in the terms of 148 new trees that will go towards mitigation and 105 shrubs. You also see we're proposing street bank restoration around the existing bridge in Whites Creek, and that 10.5 acres is being restored to natural vegetation. This is all in addition to the 220 plus trees that we're going to plant as part of the required site plan. And that includes some required planting and some additional planting that we're doing as well. So nearly 360 trees planted on site, which obviously not all are part of the mitigation, but they will act in that way. You can go to the next slide, please. One other thing that's included in this variance packet, which was not included before, but was done as a separate item with stormwater staff, is a stormwater management plan. We worked with stormwater staff to reduce and address some concerns that they had, but these are the key things that we're doing as part of this variance. The areas within the floodway receive core aeration and overseed twice annually. We also have a requirement that says if there's any flooding or any potential flooding or any flood warnings out, that we will not have events or park cars within the floodway. And in addition to that, there is regular weekly monitoring of event and overflow parking areas, and there are repair conditions in place to repair and identify those areas. Specific BMPs that we have, we're also maintaining a spill response kit on site. We're rotating parking areas between events so we minimize disturbance. If there is disturbance, seed and straw has to take place within 24 hours of that event. In addition to that, on the large events, we're adding silt fence at the stream buffers so that there is no crossing into the stream buffers from pedestrians. There's cooking grease collection if there are food tricks on site, tube waffles. So we're doing a number of things as part of our stormwater management plan when we have these events. We're not just pulling cars in and parking them. And we're prepared for the worst, so to speak. And we work very closely with stormwater to come up with these, and we insisted upon including them in our variance. Next slide. So if we can skip this slide, we'll come back to it if these are questions. If we can go to the bungalow slide, I think it's the 2 more slides.
Mr. Hollis, you're at your time right now, so I'm going to ask the committee if they have any objection for Mr. Haas continuing for another, say, 2 to 3 minutes. Does anyone on the committee have any objection? All right.
Thank you. I'll stop after these 2 slides. This is the stream buffer that is near the existing amphitheater. You see a label there on the plan that says existing stage. The area that's in yellow is currently being mowed as part of the variance. The area that is impacted, the zone 1 and zone 2 buffer, you see those images up above. Those were box seats. There's some overgrowth. There's some invasive species along that bank. And that continues up to those 2 levels to the edge of the zone 2 buffer. Those are the areas I referred to in terms of the 20,000 square feet or the 13,000 square feet that's being mowed within the stream buffer, and the existing box seats that are already impacting that buffer. What we are proposing is on the next slide. And one of the things that was asked, I think, during our neighborhood meeting is why do you need to go over there? Why are you going over there? One thing is it's certainly very picturesque on that side, but mostly because it's already been disturbed, and there's no reason for the client to spend a dime over there to tear that area down, replace it, fix it, unless we can get some units over there. And so it's one thing that we went through as a team and as a team of consultants to say, if we can minimize our impact over there, we can get the client to spend some dollars to repair this slope in this area. So what we are doing is proposing portions of 4 different bungalows that are in the stream buffer. And these are areas that are already disturbed. As you can see in that picture in the bottom left, these structures will be on stilts. Some of them will be considerably higher. In this case, these bungalows are going to be anywhere from 10 to 16 feet above that finished grade. But as part of our mitigation, we will go in and redo that slope. All of that area in the green, which is currently being mowed, will be restored to natural vegetation. The area in the light green is that area for the fire truck turnaround. They do not have to cross the bridge under this scenario. So we are going to do that with grass pave. So it will be mowed, but it is an impervious surface. So that was the last thing I wanted to show. I hope that answers questions. I've got several other graphics here if we want to go back and visit anything or ask some direct questions about some of those numbers I recited. Thank you for the extra time.
Thank you, Mr. Haas. All right, so ask all the committee members to kind of be thinking about their questions and the other data and information that they'd like to see from the applicant during our question and answer portion of our committee deliberation process. But at this time, according to our committee rules of procedure, we now open up for a public hearing. And so our main goal at this time is to hear from members of the public. And I'm gonna invite the council representative to speak at this time, if she's available. First.
Yes, I am here. Thank you, Galbraith, the Chairman Galbraith. It is Councilwoman Jennifer Gamble. I am participating by audio, and I am alone in the room where I'm participating. I just wanted to thank you all for the opportunity to address you about this project. I have been working with John Haas with Edge, and as well as the owner of the property, Tim Farrell, and making sure that the community is kept aware of the variance requests that they are asking for. There was a community meeting held on August 6th where nearly, actually 47 residents attended. Most of the residents in attendance, it was a virtual meeting. Most of the residents in attendance were from the Whites Creek area and very familiar with this project and have been involved in the Mansion and Fontanelle development over the years. At the meeting, John Haas discussed the variance request. There were several questions about the request. The specific request that he talked about was allowing the regular mowing and event parking in areas west of Whites Creek, permitting disturbance to the stream buffer in the unnamed tributary, and repairing impacted slopes, and also reactivating the variance to widen a private drive that's on the property. There were several questions, a lot of discussion. As John mentioned, the meeting went for about an hour and a half. The community was supportive of the fact that it did, the changes would minimize the impact of disturbance by reducing the number of spaces, parking spaces that they're requesting, and also restoring vegetation that had been disturbed before. After the meeting, I sent out a monthly newsletter to about 500 constituents, again, many who live in the Whites Creek area, explaining what was discussed. I also posted a video of the community meeting on my Facebook page that has gotten quite a few views. And just a few weeks ago in a September newsletter, restated what occurred at the August 6th meeting, sharing that information with the community, and also inviting them to participate in this stormwater management meeting today. So there's been quite a bit of community engagement about this project over the last several months. Since then, I've received 2 emails just this morning, actually, from 2 community members expressing concerns about the request, and I believe they may be on the call today and can speak about that. But other than that, I've not received any other phone calls or emails from community members in opposition of the request. So with that, I support the request and appreciate the committee's consideration of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Lieutenant Gamble. Appreciate that very much, and always welcome hearing from our council representatives, since they specialize in the profession of understanding the constituents of that area of the community, and that is a incredibly valuable public service, and appreciate your time this morning and your leadership. All right, so at this time, we're going to open up the public hearing for continued input for those who may be online or who are at the kiosk at the Sunny West Center, online meaning by telephone. So at this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Mishu if there are anyone who's at the Sunny West conference room kiosk who'd like to make comments for or against the proposal. And ask the public to please keep in mind of the phone number that's displayed on your screen if you'd like to call in at this time. Mr. Mishu. Okay, I'll come back to Mr. Mishu. So I'll go to Ms. Gilbert. Ms. Gilbert, do we have anyone in the queue?
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Mr. Mishu. Thank you.
No, there's nobody here in support or in opposition to this case.
Thank you, Mr. Mishu, and we appreciate that very much. He was speaking from Mr. Bowman's microphone, just to let everybody know how that was happening, to be clear in this modern age of electronic management. Okay, so thank you, Mr. Bowman, for helping Mr. Mishu make that comment as stormwater staff. So at this time, I'd like to ask Ms. Gilbert if we have anybody in the queue for or against by phone.
Yes, this is Penny Gilbert. We have a couple waiting in the queue.
All right. So I'm going to ask our queue manager to queue up each caller one at a time. And I'm assuming the caller can hear me say, please identify your name, your address, where you live in Davidson County, and whether you're for or against, please do so within 2 minutes. And we'll take the first caller at this time. And also please mute your microphone if you're listening on a computer or a telephone to this proceeding, and that'll cut back on feedback.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Elise Hudson, and I'm actually representing a group called Friends of Whites Creek, and I respectfully ask for 5 minutes to respond since I'm representing multiple people. I know they do that at planning.
Ma'am, well, unfortunately, we can only take one call at a time. And so I just need you to try to keep it to 2 minutes. And if others would like to participate, they need to call in separately.
Okay, Elise Hudson, 4601 Whites Creek Pike. I live right up the street from the Fontenelle area, and I want to be very clear about what the community concerns are here. We've been told about part of the changes in the August 6th meeting that Councilwoman Gamble talked about, we were never given any of the stormwater management updates. We were told we would get details and understand the specific changes to the application when it came out, and I got those yesterday from Penny. We also we have real concerns about any of the parking areas being compacted and causing additional flooding. This property has a history, and we just want to make sure that there were actually technical documents that state that there were calculations by engineers saying that there was no additional flooding. We just want to make sure that there's not going to be any negative impact to the surrounding homes that are already threatened by Whites Creek. That's our main concern, and we have not seen any proof other than their promises that this isn't going to cause any issue. And we're really relying on Stormwater to tell us, yes, we've seen some sort of technical documentation. Yes, what they're talking about is not going to cause any issue. There's concerns about the parking and the compacting of the soil. I'm glad that's going to be reviewed, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to cause flooding issues. There's a talk about vegetation restoration. Well, what happens in the meantime if the vegetation is still not grown back to its regular state or its natural state? We're really concerned about, making sure that that area where they're building the bungalows, for those 4 bungalows in Zone 2, that's their guess. We want to make sure that those people are safe. If they're in Zone 2, that water can rise very quickly. I think that there's still a lot of work to be done. We don't know when this construction is going to start. We'd like some community input in terms of letting us know what some of the mitigation is going to be while they're doing construction, because there might be some disturbance there. And we're really just concerned about making sure our community, both upstream and downstream, because it's so sensitive in Whites Creek, is not flooded additionally.
Thank you, ma'am. Really do appreciate your cooperation and giving a timely presentation. Another mitigating factor today is that because of the new electronic meeting standards, we have to make sure that the people who are participating can identify themselves and are present individually to do so. And so we appreciate your cooperation in summarizing this perspective so well and so efficiently. All right, we have another person in the queue.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Please state your name, your address, and whether you're for or against the proposal, and please limit your comments to 2 minutes.
Yes, sir. Thank you. My name is George Ewing. I live at 4601 Whites Creek Pike. I am against, I guess, the proposed variance. My concern is that with most recent approval of the SP, there was a removal of the number of non-ticketed events, and there was also a removal of the number of attendees allowed at events, and sharing some concerns that I know Stormwater is already working on. Within Stormwater zone regulations, there's restrictions that variances shall only be issued upon showing of good and sufficient cause, determination if they are to grant the variance will result in exceptional hardship, and a determination, most importantly, that the granting of variance will not result in flood heights, additional threats to public safety, or extraordinary public expense, create nuisance, cause fraud on or victimization of the public, or conflict with existing local laws or ordinances. And I think of that most important to me is the demonstration that the granting of the variance will not result in increased flood heights or additional threats to public safety. I know it's a separate issue that Stormwater doesn't have in front of them, but I am excited about the ideas at the core of this, of what Blue Road is bringing in this new proposal that we work with Jennifer Gamble on. My concerns are that these variances increase risks, and it has not been sufficiently demonstrated by the applicant that this is not going to cause increased flooding. And then my last concern is that we're seeing, for whatever reason, an increased frequency and increased severity of weather events. and that this be taken into consideration with how rapidly Whites Creek responds to those weather event risks that proposes. But other than that, I just really thank you all for all your work and your dedication. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments, and particularly for your efficient timing there. Okay, I understand that that concludes the two people we have in the queue. I'm going to recognize someone from Parks in just a minute, but I want to double check with Ms. Gilbert to see if anyone new has joined the queue on the telephone, other than those two callers we expected.
This is Penny. No, we do not have anyone else.
All right, thank you, Ms. Gilbert. Thank you very much, our telephone operators and all of our Metro staff for managing this so well. So at this time, I'd like to recognize Ms. Harrison from Parks. I received this notice from a text from our stormwater staff that this person would be available to speak. So just want to make that clear. All right, Ms. Harrison?
Yes, this is Cindy Harrison with Metro Parks. I just want to make sure that the committee is aware that the agreement, the letter of agreement that I believe Ms. Costonis has received yesterday would be part of any variance approval. That letter addresses the concerns that we had expressed at a previous meeting. So just want to make sure everybody's aware of that and that was received.
Thank you, Ms. Harrison. You're also representing Greenways?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I've got a question for you in a few minutes. If you can hang on with us a little bit longer, I greatly appreciate it.
Sure.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, you're on mute.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you, Ms. Costonis. For some reason, I'm getting myself out of order today. Okay, so let me restate what I just said. I think this concludes all of those that we had planned to speak live, but while we're taking written comments, reading written comments that were submitted by email, you will still have the opportunity to call in and be queued up if you like until we close the public hearing. So that number is 629-255-1919. So at this time, I'm going to ask, I think, Mr. Bowman to read any email comments, and I want to let the public know that the 2-minute rule applies to written comments as well in terms of reading them on air. All of the committee members can receive these in writing as well. And so if we haven't done that yet, Mr. Bowman and Ms. Gilbert, you might email all those to the committee members in case we run out of time in reading those comments.
Square feet, the maximum total footprint for outbuildings on the lot is 1,000 square feet.
If you'd introduce each email with the name, address, and the comments, and then feel free to proceed. And when you hit the 2-minute mark, I'll let you know. Mr. Bowman, you ready? Okay, I'll fill the air. Looks like Mr. Bowman's mic is not active at the moment. It's not turned off nor turned on, according to mine. There we go. Okay, I see the green mic symbol. All right, you're recognized, Mr. Bowman. please
This
identify
is Logan
yourself.
Bowman. Yeah, this is Logan Bowman with Metro Development Services. I'm here with Mr. Mishu in the Sunny West conference room. I've got 3 emails to read. All right. First email is from Gladys Heron at 609 Cherry Grove Point, Whites Creek, Tennessee. Dear Stormwater Management Committee members, as a residential property owner within a subdivision directly across the road of Whites Creek within 1,000 feet of Fontenelle, the purpose of this email is to state concerns and request for your consideration regarding the application of Fontenelle for additional stormwater variances. The applicant's request appears to be a non-hardship economy of operation reasons that can be resolved by using non-hardship measures within its property to construct bungalows in a large parking lot accommodating 2,500 vehicles without disturbing the floodway and stream of the floodplain long maintained for the protection of all property owners in the neighborhood. The owner of Fontenelle is aware that the business operates in Metro Davidson County's only historically rural residential district with restrictions to maintain the rural character of the community with approximately 150 nearby homeowners. With the final approval in July 2020 of Metro Council Bill 2020-219 that granted Fontenelle its request for additional SP entitlements included a new category of permitted events, non-ticketed year-round. The variance requests for disturbance of the floodway in Zone 1 and Zone 2 of the floodway appear consequential. The new ordinance entitlements permitting more than 2,500 attendees at non-ticketed for-profit events on the property of Fontenelle year-round will have a financial impact in both revenues and the expense of managing traffic and parking logistics. The answer to Fontenelle's financial cost-cutting matter is not to throw out the no-disturb floodway policy to facilitate the solution to an expense item of managing parking and traffic. Please see sections 3 and 4 of the bill. Maximizing Fontenelle's financial and economy of operation at the expense of nearby homeowners having potential flooding problems is no benefit to the approximately 150 residential owners within 1,800 feet of Fontenelle. In fact, the passage of Bill 2020-2019 allowing year-round non-ticketed for-profit events.
Mr. Bowman, you've reached 2 minutes with that submission.
Mr. Chair, may I be recognized?
Yes, ma'am. Please do.
So this is one of the aspects of the new Executive Order 60 that I'm not quite sure how to interpret, but just to be erring on the side of caution, I wanted to suggest that maybe it would be better not to cut off the comments at 2 minutes today in terms of the written ones. The Executive Order 60 specifically says this order does not limit, preempt, or repeal any local requirements permitting public comment during meetings, except that compliance with such requirements may be accomplished by allowing timely and appropriately submitted written public comments to be read into the record by a member or staff of the governing body during the meeting of the governing body. And while it doesn't say that you can't apply the same limit that you would apply to an in-person or telephone comment, it does not mention it either way. So I'm a little uncomfortable with applying the 2 minute cutoff under those circumstances, because I think we just want to err on the side of fully and completely complying with the governor's executive order.
That sounds perfectly okay to me, Ms. Costonis. I appreciate it. And I've got a unique request. If you'll stay on just a minute, Ms. Costonis, let me know if I can do this without objection. Ms. Maddox, could you take over the chair role for just about 3 minutes while I take care of a matter that's going to disrupt my participation electronically here? Ms. Costonis, do you have any objection to me doing that?
If Ms. Maddox is willing.
Okay, that's right. Okay, Ms. Maddox, as vice chair, are you willing to take over for the next 2-3 minutes?
Yes.
All right, thank you, ma'am. I'll be right back. Thank you, Ms. Costonis. I appreciate it very much. Thank you, Ms. Maddox, in particular.
Okay, so Logan, do you want to resume your reading?
Yes, I can do that. All right. In summary, the floodway appears to be perhaps the most significant component of the floodplain relative to maintaining the flood carrying capacity of the creek and streams in Whites Creek. Please continue to protect all the property owners in the Whites Creek rural residential neighborhood surrounding Fontenelle. Fontenelle's request for disturbances to the buffers of the floodway for its economy of operation appears lacking regard for the potential flooding impact on approximately 150 nearby residential property owners. I ask that you protect all the property owners in the Whites Creek rural neighborhood surrounding Fontenelle and do not approve the requested variances for disturbances or the mowing of the buffer if it will be used for the parking of cars in the buffer. Please, disturbance of the floodway, Zone 1, Zone 2 buffers, disturbance of the stream, Zone 1 and Zone 2 buffers, continuous mowing and maintenance only if for maintenance and not parking cars. No parking of cars on mowed grass in the buffer for year-round non-ticketed events that could cause compaction of the buffer and flooding in the neighborhood. Your service to the people of Davidson County in consideration of my concerns in maintaining flood-free neighborhoods in Metro Nashville are greatly appreciated. Respectfully, Gladys Heron, 609 Cherry Grove Point, Whites Creek, Tennessee. The next email is from Elise Hudson at 4601 Whites Creek Pike, Whites Creek, Tennessee.
So Miss Elise Hudson already spoke. Do we also need to hear her email?
Again, I just am not certain. The governor's order doesn't speak to that specifically. My inclination would be to err on the side of caution and allow it.
Okay, Logan, sorry to interrupt.
Right. Ms. Hudson says, to Stormwater Variance Committee, the Whites Creek community is concerned about the possibility of adding or negatively changing floodwater along the already unstable Whites Creek waterways. Our concerns are strictly about preventing harm to people, visitors, and homes/structures near the Fontenelle property and along Whites Creek, both up and downstream. This is about protecting people and homes that are already threatened by the growing waters of Whites Creek during heavy rains and long-lasting storms. Small changes could mean major catastrophes for those along Whites Creek. General questions/concerns about the application/variance process. Do any of these variances cause additional water flooding, diversion of water to a new area, negative impact, or potentially put any homeowner/community member at additional risk of flooding if these variances are approved? Many homeowners are only 1 to 2 feet from having homes flooded already. Some already do. Does Fontenelle/Edge have technical evaluations, engineering reports, impact studies, calculations that show/prove there is no expected additional risk to flooding for the community near Fontenelle or downstream Whites Creek? This property, despite having new owners, has a history of not following the law or their previous variances when it comes to how/where they build. Community wants assurance via technical evaluation/studies showing that the proper research was done to ensure there is no negative impact from the proposed changes at Fontenelle. If there is any negative impact to the stormwater flooding by these variances, the Stormwater Variance Committee should deny them per the Stormwater Variance Committee Rules, Appendix F, the Stormwater Regulations, to Section F1.1.2.4.b. Variances shall only be issued upon the showing of good and sufficient cause, a determination that failure to grant the variance would result in an exceptional hardship, and a determination that the granting of a variance will not result in increased flood heights, additional threats to public safety, or extraordinary public expense, great nuisance, cause fraud on or victimization of the public, or conflict with existing local laws or ordinances. The same regulation, Section F1.1.2.1, states, in approving variances for applications, the Stormwater Management Committee shall consider all technical evaluations, all relevant factors, all standards specified in other sections of these regulations, and the danger to life and property due to flooding or erosion damage. the availability of alternative locations not subject to flooding or erosion damage for the proposed use, detailed questions about the specific variances. Items 1 and 8 from application package, page 3. Where are visitors for events allowed to park today, and what areas are included in the variance for parking during future events? How will the additional/new compacting of soil from new parking areas not impact the ability of those fields to absorb water? Items 1 and 8. Overall, the argument regarding the mowing of disallowed areas was that Fontenelle would be returning more areas to their natural vegetative state, and that the mowed area would be less than what was previously approved. Were there technical studies of the future mowed areas, including evaluations of the types of vegetation to ensure that there will be no stormwater impact of the additional mowing? How much time will it take for the previously mowed areas to return to original natural vegetation states and return to the original water absorbency of that vegetation? What will be done to prevent additional water runoff/diversion/impact from the additional mowing while the older areas are still returning to the original vegetative state? What precautions is Fontenelle taking to protect guests in the bungalow units that you want to build in zones 1 and 2 of the unnamed tributary of Whites Creek near the old box seats from the amphitheater? Why should Fontenelle be granted this variance when other builders would be prevented from building in these zones for safety reasons? Item 5 of the package mentions a variance for widening an existing drive for access per Metro Fire and Utilities. Fontenelle claims that this driveway expansion would disturb the area where the drive and utilities are today. The new variance would ultimately decrease the overall size of the disturbed area from what was previously approved. Has Fontenelle done the technical studies to ensure no negative impacts by implementing these changes? How will Fontenelle present negative impact to stormwater during construction/widening? Question about the notifying/including the community. How will the community be notified of construction timelines and impact as these variants are implemented, assuming that the variances are granted? How will the community be informed of the variances and impacts that were not discussed at the 8/6/2020 community meeting with Fontenelle and Councilwoman Jennifer Gamble? Attached is a screenshot of the variances that were discussed at the community meeting 8/6. Recording of meeting available on Jennifer Gamble's Facebook page. Community members were informed of 3 new changes/variances from Fontenelle. The following were not included on the list of changes presented: grading and paving of drives for access to bungalow units along unnamed tributary of Whites Creek near old box seats, and construction of a stabilized emergency vehicle access point. Utility lines. At the community meeting, Fontenelle mentioned the paved drive, but not about utility lines. Not sure if it is underneath/along the existing drive or in a different area. And removal of the swimming pool behind existing log cabin. Thank you for your consideration of the Whites Creek community concerns. Please ensure that the action/building resulting from these variances will not cause additional negative stormwater impact to those who visit or live near Whites Creek, both up and downstream. Sincerely, Elise Hudson, Friends of Whites Creek, 4601 Whites Creek Pike, Whites Creek, Tennessee. And the last email that we got was from Angela Williams at 7203 Old Hickory Boulevard. Dear Stormwater Variance Committee, I have written to you before regarding the variances requesting for the property at Fontenelle. I am greatly concerned about granting variances in the floodplain in an area where Metro has aggressively pursued the buyout of homes in Whites Creek in floodway and floodplain. Why grant variances that go against the mitigation strategies and investments made by the city? I am greatly concerned by the increased runoff from additional structures and disturbances of the tree canopy on the steep slopes of Hood Hollow. This area has seen multiple landslides in the past 10 years. There have been 2 within 3 miles of the proposed site. The most impressive was the landslide blocking I-24, causing huge traffic and economic issues to local businesses. Please address the 5 bridges along a 1-mile stretch of Whites Creek on and adjacent to the property that are not being addressed. 2 on Knight Drive, 2 on Fontenelle property, and 1 on Whites Creek Pike. These are causes of major backups and increased flooding. Finally, I am concerned about the new owner's complying with Metro policies. 2 weeks ago, they had an event at Fontenelle in direct violation of the SP provisions granted by Metro Planning as outlined in the SP. Edge has requested variance after variance after variance as evidenced by the confused list of requests from the past 10 years. Many have not been followed, yet they continue to ask for more. I respectfully request that the committee maintain the highest standards in prevention of flooding. Thank you, Angela Williams, 7203 Old Hickory Boulevard.
All right, Ms. Maddox, is it okay if I rejoin the role as chair?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry for dumping that on you last minute.
Well, that's okay.
That's the only way I could keep my environment productive here. Okay, so Mr. Bowman, does that conclude all of our written comments?
Yes, it does, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Gilbert, do we have anyone that might have called in during the period while we were reading comments?
Yes, this is Penny Gilbert. We have callers waiting in the queue.
All right. Thank you very much. Ms. Costonis, do you have your hand raised for a particular reason?
I did, sir. This may be more appropriate to wait until the remaining callers on the queue have been heard, as I didn't realize there were going to be any, but I was going to suggest that the letter that Ms. Harrison referenced be shared with the, I believe it's been shared with the committee by email already, but maybe be shared with the committee on screen as well, and with the public that way, as I believe that it is the request of Parks and of the attorney who worked with Parks that the provisions of that letter be incorporated by the committee as conditions on any variance that is granted.
Excellent. Okay, appreciate that. I think that that's actually more timely now than later, because that once it's posted, it may encourage someone else to call in. So Ms. Gilbert and Ms. Doan, if you all can make an attempt to zoom in a little bit on that with your view. There you go. Just so people can kind of read it. Yeah, there you go. If you can expand it kind of to the max of the edges without it running off the screen, that'd be great. That's perfect. And you could just kind of leave maybe a quarter page up, say every 1 minute or something, and I'll leave the public hearing open at least for, looks like that's a 2-page letter, so half page per minute. Maybe that's 4 minutes. And I think with our callers calling in, it'll probably be that much time or longer. So I want to ask everyone who may be interested in this letter to please read it while it's on the screen. We'll spend some time now taking more callers. So Ms. Gilbert, you'd ask the operator to queue up our first caller. I want to remind our callers to state your name, your address in Davidson County, and whether you're for or against, and try to limit your verbal comments to 2 minutes.
Thanks so much, and apologies for any redundancy. I had to log out of the meeting. I missed the last 2 comments, but my name is Sarah Bellows. I live at 4041 Knight Drive, Lake Creek, directly adjacent to the subject property, and my husband and I own 5 other properties also adjacent to the Fontenelle property, including the new expanded SP that was added last year, which is currently undeveloped land in the floodway and floodplain. Our concerns are, after attending the community meeting, we actually didn't get answers to most of the questions proposed by the community. It's unfortunate that Mr. Haas is only one available on the call today to address those concerns, but Mr. Galbraith, one of the major requests you had in the last Stormwater committee hearing was for a list and kind of like some expectations around the number of non-ticketed but for-profit year-round events, since this is a major increase potentially in the number of events being held at the subject property, and the applicant really offered no written guidance whatsoever on how those events will be managed, whether they will be taking place during weekdays, exactly how parking fields will be rotated to minimize disturbance of the grass buffer. We know that White Creek is only really
accelerated the amount of flooding in the last 10 years since this property was really first allowed for development. And while I appreciate the kind of like hardship request, the reality is, as Mr. Haas mentioned, that 2,500 parking spots would have otherwise been paved over to accommodate this. The originally, the original event allowance from federal government that never could have possibly happened on this area. And so I think that the fact that this area has really steep slopes and is majority floodplain is just a reality of the property, and the applicants knew that when they bought this property. And so I think that making sure that Fontanelle is abiding by the rules that the rest of the public has to, including us as property owners adjacent to the property, is really critical, and providing the details to the community as well as an answer to the questions proposed in the community meeting. Those should have all been copied in Zoom, and so a lot of them have been unaddressed. We haven't had follow-up from the applicant or the councilwoman except a notification about this meeting, no specific answers to the things addressed. One specific issue brought up is that upstream flooding caused by Fontanelle is increasing, partially because when their bridges collect logs and other debris and are not cleaned out promptly after major flooding and stormwater events, we suffer upstream really significantly. And the applicant said that they were only allowed to clean out the bridges, I think either every quarter or every year. So we request to have a approval for them to clean out bridges that are holding log jams essentially and causing flooding upstream within 48 hours after a rain event, if not sooner, because that is when we see a lot of secondary flooding on our homes. I think that the major request I have is on the number of events that are non-ticketed year-round. Everyone loves a free event, and I think that that is a huge risk for the community to not know what is going to be happening when and what a maximum is, as well as who's enforcing it. A couple of weeks ago, there was a musical event taking place at the subject property. We were not notified about it. It was during a school night. It went past 10 p.m. We could hear sound inside of our homes, and there was no one to contact. We couldn't get in touch with the property owners since they do not live in Nashville. And so I think that just shows, that's before they're even open. I don't know the details of the event, except that we could hear it in our house when we were trying to get our children to bed, and it was on a school night. And so I think that we need more written documentation on the number of events. We need the applicant to have approval to clean out these bridges that are below the topography of the area and already have a history of flooding. We are not against having bungalows in the woods, at least my husband and I are not, but the fact that the fields are going to potentially have way more traffic, way more compaction, and we've never seen a detailed site plan for the 20 acres at the corner of White Creek and Knight Drive on the northwest part of the subject property to understand what berms and other land features will be added. They've been alluded to, and as you know, berms can cause water to run off in different directions than it normally does. It might not be uncompensated fill, but moving dirt from one area of a property to another and making that potentially for the upstream subject properties much more at risk. We're right across the road. We've gotten through unscathed even in the 2010 flood, but we're very sensitive to the fact that changes to this geography and to the topography have a really negative impact on all of our investments in the area, and really our time investment in making this a really beautiful area as well. So thanks so much. I think that it was a request of Mr. Galbraith of you to have more clarity from the applicant on the number of events. And that's something that I did not hear in Mr. Haas's presentation at all. And so I'd just like to remind you of that. That was definitely a major sticking point of how much increased traffic could really be, even though we're calling this lumping together of previously awarded variances. I think that we know the number of events can really drastically increase, and there's no opportunity for community recourse or ensuring that those stay within the specified, really like environmental management of rotating parking lots and things like that that the applicant stated, but really has not offered a plan for. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay, Ms. Gilbert, do we have another caller? I think you mentioned that was plural earlier.
We seem to have lost the other caller, or they decided to hang up. So
Okay.
no more.
All right. Okay. So given the fact that we have checked with the Sunny West Conference Center kiosk earlier, without objection, if I don't hear from Mr. Mishu that someone has wandered in over there and would like to speak, and since we don't have any other callers, I'm going to suggest that we close the public hearing at this time. And I want to ask the applicant to be thinking of whether or not they would like to respond to some of the comments that have been submitted here this morning. I don't know if you were keeping a running total. I've got somewhat of a running total that I've kept in my notes that I'll address as questions. So I'm going to declare the public hearing closed without objection, and ask the applicant if he would like to respond to any of those comments that were offered. And I would ask you to respond in terms of providing additional information and evidence, instead of just thinking purely about what you might disagree with or what you might rebut. Just give us information and clarity of what you all are doing to address these concerns, if you don't mind, if that's appropriate.
Yes, this is John Haas again with Edge. A couple of things I want to make clear that again we are in our opinion improving the variances that have been in place for, in the case of the floodway parking, almost 10 years, and making that situation better. I will say that, and again, that's 600 less cars and 10 acres additional native vegetation. We have provided calculations as part of our stormwater plan and the site plan submittal that show an actual reduction in the peak flows from this site post-construction. So if anything, we have actually reduced the peak flow off the site as a result of these changes to the plan. And those documents were not a part of this application, but they have been submitted to Metro Stormwater and are either under review or I think at this point we may be responding to some comments there. But we've demonstrated that with calculations in conformance with Metro standards. In regards to the number of events, the SP that was amended most recently, that got adopted in July, just as before, had no limit. There has never been a limit on non-ticketed events on site. That's in terms of number of people and number of events. We worked with the community, we worked with the Councilwoman Gamble to leave that in place, and there are a number of reasons for that, which we've discussed with the community. Those types of events can be things like what took place out there a couple of weeks ago, which was discussed with Stormwater prior to that event, which was a political event. I believe it was a convention watch party for the RNC. And actions were in place, and I do believe Councilwoman Gamble did have some contact with some residents, so there was someone available to speak with. But those types of events, we mentioned at the community meeting that we purposely are not putting forth a plan about the rotation of these fields because we cannot predict the weather or the condition of these fields. So what we will do is move the parking as appropriate based upon the condition of the fields. And we think, again, that is something that is most appropriate out here, as opposed to putting some plan in place that someone can say, you didn't do this or you didn't do that. We understand we are part of the community. We understand we have a large floodway here. We are not proposing any structures within the floodway or the floodway buffer. We are following all rules and guidelines. We are not increasing any flooding possibilities upstream, downstream. We are not asking for any uncompensated fill. We did not speak about the other variances for the very reason I went through today at the public meeting. Only 3 of these variances are being amended. We are not asking for any changes to the variances that are in place that will be on the record, that will all be combined into this one variance, which is something we spoke with Councilwoman Gamble to focus on the changes. So I believe we've answered those questions a number of times, most recently at the neighborhood meeting. Some of the concerns that were expressed are off-site, quite frankly, on some bridges, and they have been discussed with. We've had conversations with Metro Stormwater officials about those. In regards to our bridge, we did say the bridge that's on site that, you know, we do have to get permission to go into that creek to clean anything up. We certainly want to do that as soon as possible. I don't know that we can agree to 48 hours or, you know, we certainly want that permission, but depending upon the flood event. One of the things we are proposing is that 400 lineal foot of mitigation and stream cleanup to help address that issue around the bridge. That's how we address that. And then I'll be happy to answer if I missed a few, but I think those were the big points.
Thank you, Mr. Haas. Appreciate that. Okay, so this brings us to the point where our commission members have the opportunity to ask questions, make statements, and at this time I'll recognize Mr. Dale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Roy Dale. I don't have anybody in the room with me if I need to state that. And I know you all are aware that I probably have more, I'm more involved or interested in this project, and I want to explain to everybody why. I was a council member for the Opryland area for 8 years, and that venue was along the Cumberland River where it flooded frequently. We had a lot of neighbors there that were concerned about flooding. Opryland came before this committee probably multiple times, multiple requests for variances, and I think Fontenelle is extremely similar. And so my sympathies go to Councilmember Gamble because it's a very tight balancing act. From Opryland's perspective, they made so many variance requests that people just naturally thought, well, if you're making so many requests and we're having so much flooding, there's probably some kind of connection here. And I think that's just, you know, these people are not really experts. They don't really have the ability to look at the plans necessarily. And so they trust and they need assurances. I can assure you, just based upon my experience, that when people are involved, maybe it's thought that they were just trying to be an impediment to a project, but that's not the case. Generally, people are seriously just concerned about the things that we're supposed to be concerned about, and that's the public and the health and safety of the people that live in the area. And so we shouldn't look at people as being obstructionists. They're really just concerned about their communities, and they're trying to make sure that they get the assurances that they need. And when I look at the email, and I've heard a lot of this testimony, I think that's what I'm really hearing, is they're looking at this committee to talk to this applicant and make sure that they're doing everything that they can possibly do to assure the people within this area that this is not going to increase flooding. And so that's why they're asking that they provide us with certain levels of expertise. And so I just wanted to say that before we started really discussing this, so people can understand this from my perspective and probably also from Councilmember Gamble's perspective. She's in a balancing act here as well. She has constituents that she wants to listen to, and she has a venue in this area that probably has some benefit as well. So it's a tight balancing act. But I just wanted to say that before we started discussion. I want to hear what everybody else has to say. And I just want to say at the beginning, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dale. So at this time, I'd like to request Ms. Doan, if you can put up the 5 points that Mr. Haas addressed earlier that we asked him to address, to give our discussion a little more structure due to the complexity that Mr. Dale has already alluded to, and that we asked the applicant to address, to give us a little more clarity concerning specifically what they're requesting and how to differentiate that from past variances. I appreciate Mr. Dale's comments. You know, it's complexity and history doesn't always imply that that there's something contradictory going on. These things are really difficult. That's why the committee asked for clarity between what previously was granted and what's currently being proposed. So I hope that we've done the job we needed to do here today to provide the public with more clarity. I certainly empathize with the concern about timing and how some of these things tend to gel right before the committee hearing. And I know the applicant has provided us with a lot of information, so I want to apologize up front to the public for us not anticipating how to get this out to the public a little more efficiently, but we're certainly need your participation during this open meeting in this electronic meeting. We're certainly making information and very transparent during this meeting and trying to bend over backwards to give people the chance to provide us input during the time frame that we're allowed to review this proposal as a quasi-judicial committee process. So we do have to kind of limit our interactions and our review of evidence during these publicly noticed meeting scheduled times. So it's really important that the public try to participate during these times with us. Okay, and we very much appreciate all the callers and the email comments and participation of the council representative today by doing that. So let me see if I can address some of my questions to staff and potentially invite the applicant for clarification as well. But I'll start with staff on the matter of bridge cleanouts. What is our policy for the applicant concerning removal of debris after a flood event? Anyone like to respond to that?
Mr. Chairman, this is Michael Hunt. I can try to respond to that.
Well, thank you, Mr. Hunt.
I don't work necessarily in that group, but I am involved to some degree on some of these. And I can say generally, bridges are cleaned out on a rotation based on loading, which obviously depends on the frequency of storm events.
Talking about public bridges, Mr. Hunt?
That's correct, yes, okay. Public bridges.
And specifically, what is the policy for the applicant to follow?
On their bridge?
On their bridge cleanouts.
I think they would just need to consult their representatives as far as what the risk that they are creating for those around them. Metro generally on those type of issues doesn't get involved unless it's impacting flooding on the Metro right-of-way, on a road or on public property. Ms. Costonis might want to chime in on that, but that's generally my understanding.
Okay, so there's not a limitation as to how often or how fast they can get in there to remove obstruction under their bridge.
I don't know if I would put the question to the applicant maybe in terms of clarifying what they're talking about, but I don't know if they're talking about needing to close a road or something like that, in which case there are public works lane closure permits, but that's all I can think of.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking in terms of the public comments that the applicant's maintenance under their bridges. Let me see if I can restate it this way. I apologize. I probably didn't set this up right. but a bridge across a riparian zone, and particularly a floodway, is technically more often than not going to generate an obstruction to flow, which is going to slow velocity, which is going to encourage a collection of debris after a flood event, which is potentially going to clog the floodway channel and associated floodway flows more quickly than it would if the bridge were not there. And so the burden is particularly on an applicant who inserts a bridge into a floodway, even if it's through a variance, because they're altering the hydrologic condition, and therefore implicit with that is a responsibility to maintain free flow under that structure for people upstream of that site. I think one of the public commenters said that they were experiencing some flooding upstream because flow is being impeded under the applicant's bridges. Whether that's accurate or not is a separate issue. There certainly may be other contributing factors like other metro bridges that have similar challenges as well. But John, can you address how often you all feel like you're either limited or required to take care of those kind of maintenance issues?
Yes, let me make sure I'm off mute. Yes, I will address that, and I do just want to, if I may, point out one more time, in terms of on our site and off our site, we are decreasing the amount of peak flow off our site. So regardless of if the bridge is backed up or not, the peak flow is reduced off site. In regards to the bridge, where we have run into issues in the past, again, I point to the stormwater management plan and some watchful eyes and concerned community members that anytime we encroach upon Whites Creek, it seems to be an issue. And that has been the issue with the clean out, because in some cases it takes some pretty large equipment to get down under the bridge and take out some large logs, trees, all types of things have been under that bridge. That usually translates to disruption of the stream buffer. And that is where the issue has come up, where we have not done it on a, you know, like as soon as a flood is done. But if you go out there today, I can tell you the last time I was out there was, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks ago. It was clean. It takes one storm event for there to be items under there. If we're allowed to clean it out as much as we want, we will do that. If we have the ability to do that, we were very cautious in the past not to create an issue along Whites Creek.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Haas. Appreciate that. I think that clarifies it, that you all see that there's a challenge to keep these areas maintained because of potential disturbance to the buffer, which you have which is our primary focus here. But you're not experiencing any particular. There's nothing in your current plan with Metro Stormwater that dictates how often that should happen, or okay.
No, and again, our hope is that the stream bank restoration, which is the 400 lineal feet focused around that bridge, will help to allow that water to move through, because there has been some erosion. We don't want erosion.
Okay. All right, thanks, sir. All right. So my next question is concerning mitigation, Mr. Haas. So you all are proposing, I think by my count, did I see something under 200 trees spread over 10 plus acres?
Yeah, 148 new trees and 105 shrubs. That's along the areas of predominantly all of those plantings are happening along Whites Creek, okay, because other areas are primarily wooded already.
Okay.
And then in addition to that are the 220 trees, which some of which are being planted within the floodway buffer and floodway itself.
How amenable are you all to increasing the number of tree and shrub plantings. And let me see if I could preface it like this. Currently, we don't have specific explicit guidance as to tree density for mitigation. We rely on a case-by-case basis. Every site tends to be different, as some of our staff had pointed out to us in the past. Typically, natural sites in a mature forest that has reached close to maturity will have 50 stems per acre of density, and that doesn't include understory. So, if you just take that math, 50 times 10 and a half, that's quite a few more trees than what you're proposing. I don't think it's appropriate for us to, given the lack of explicit mitigation details, for us to ask something of that nature. That doesn't give you enough prior expectation as an applicant, I think, to be aware of that cost in your consideration. But I do think perhaps something a little dense, more important, would address the concern of some of the community that those tree roots are going to be aerating the soil, putting down a humus layer over time that's going to be capturing water, going to be further reducing flood peaks to offset the compaction of your fields. I will say, just anecdotally, that in my 20s, I had an anecdotal experience with a farmer one time who I was visiting in my federal truck. I worked for USDA at the time. And he cautioned me. He said, son, he said, if you're going to drive across this community, to check out my fields, I wish you'd stay in the grass lanes. He said, every time your trucks get on my plowed ground, you reduce my yields by 5 bushels per acre of soybeans. So, we all know anecdotally and empirically that compaction traffic across fields reduces infiltration and increases runoff. So, given that kind of anecdotal feedback, would you all be willing to consider a higher density in mitigation?
I think we can consider that. One note I'd like to point forward, and maybe Rebecca can pull up our mitigation plans along Whites Creek. The 10.5 acres is the area within the floodway, not just within the floodway buffer. I don't know if it's part of this presentation, Rebecca. It might be further down. I think it is.
It is. It's towards the end.
But that 10.5 acres is around the floodway and floodplain, which has historically all been farmed or mowed. Remember, Fontenelle was private residence before it was purchased for commercial uses. And so there is so we really put the focus of our mitigation within the first 100 feet of Whites Creek. And there is quite a bit of tree cover already there. So if you will see, we really focused on, if you can continue to go down, I don't know, it may just be my screen is stuck, but the mitigation plans are in here. Focused on those gaps, if you will, as to where we were adding those trees. And you can see on these plans that we're actually adding those trees within the canopy already in some cases. We can look additional, but I can tell you that the 220 trees that are required as part of our site plan submittal, there will be additional trees to those as well. So I don't know what you're proposing, but we could look at some additional. I think we based our calculation on the lineal feet of areas disturbed. And I would also respectfully remind you that mitigation for these areas that have been parked in the floodway has already been completed for areas larger than what we're disturbing. So we did mitigation with the previous variances that were granted.
Yeah, it's the math that we always want applicants to be mindful of. You don't get to count it twice. So you don't get to count existing vegetation towards new impacts that create more runoff and higher flood peaks. And you don't get to count previous mitigation towards previous variance criteria. As you introduce new impacts, we ask for new mitigation to offset those impacts. That's we don't grant variances without mitigation typically, unless there's just clear site limitations and other trade-offs. Off-site mitigation sometimes is an option, but we're looking to try to help you help your community feel better about what you're doing and to protect the public welfare and interest in water quality and flood management in this area. Is that a fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And I apologize. My confusion is that our previous mitigation plans in considered a larger area. So that idea of counting it twice is we're reducing the area we're impacting while increasing our mitigation.
Yes, and you know, we appreciate you reducing the area that you're impacting, but we can't give you credit for what you're reducing because that's technically just, you know, reducing the impact. So we don't get to count what you're reducing either. So yeah, we can only mitigate what you're increasing in terms of impact.
Do you have a proposal in terms of what that number might look like?
Okay, I don't yet because it'll be a committee decision. So that's why I'm just kind of throwing out questions and comments here so that we can all digest it at the same time, and then we'll probably integrate staff into that consideration as well. So, all right, thank you, Mr. Haas. All right, so let me proceed to another question. Okay, on the issue of non-ticketed events, I'd like to clarify with staff, just to hear your all's official, I guess, response to this. Is it true that there are no limits to non-ticketed events in previous variances or the current variance proposal that we're concerned about?
This is Rebecca Doan with,
hey, Ms. Doan.
With Stormwater. There has been a bit of confusion between what is allowed per variance and what has been approved per SP. I believe they are holding that per their SP, and they can correct me that there is no limitation. We did have some previous limitations in their site stormwater management plan, which I think was 36 events per year. But
non-ticketed?
As far as, well, and I don't have those plans right in front of me, but as far as definition of event versus, you know, community event versus what they were having ticketed, I don't think we've finally settled on those.
Okay. All right. And all right. So concerning the development of the buffers for the bungalows that you're planning to put on stilts, Mr. Haas, you're only proposing those for the zone 2, is that correct?
I believe that's right. It's the outer zone. I think that is the zone 2.
Okay. That may or may not be an appropriate response. In previous decisions, we've been primarily concerned with the footprint of area taken up in the zone 2. So typically we have encouraged mitigation of minor intrusions into the zone 2. In other areas where we've dealt with completely new residents taking up most of the zone 2, we've been less inclined to grant those variances. So I just want to point that out. But stilts is a new issue, I think, for us. So we'll discuss that here in a few minutes. So you clarified earlier that you all had provided documentation concerning flood peaks to staff. So I need to ask staff, are you all satisfied with the documentation that the applicant has provided concerning flood peaks and runoff, increased runoff? Or is that even necessary for this type of proposal since they're not doing any kind of cut and fills in the floodway, the floodplain? guess that'd be a question for Ms. Doan or Mr. Hunt.
This is Rebecca Down with Metro Stormwater. That is actually a question for development services. So you need to talk to Steve Mishu or Logan Bowman.
Okay. Steve's name crossed my mind, but I was also mindful of his accessibility to a microphone at the moment. So, Mr. Bowman, can you loan your mic to Mr. Mishu? Okay, we're waiting for Mr. Mishu to see if he can participate. Mr. Mishu, you're welcome to text me to give me an update on where you are. This is the text between me and a stormwater staff, not another commission member, by the way. I want to discourage everyone from using text. Okay, the text is he's having issues. All right. So let me go to another point while we're waiting for Mr. Mishu concerning the parks letter. Ms. Doan, would you be the person to address the nature of how we need to integrate this parks letter with any variance change? Do you see anything in the current proposal that conflicts with the parks letter requirement?
This is Rebecca Doan with Metro Stormwater.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't feel that the letter conflicts with anything. It's fairly separate from the variance, as the greenway has already been, part of the greenway has already been established, and they are just setting up usage amounts for closing down the greenway. But I don't necessarily see any issue with including the letter as part of our record, but I would ask Ms. Costonis to speak on that as well.
Okay, Ms. Costonis, do you want to speak to that? And then I'd ask Ms. I think it's Ms. Harrison with Parks to be ready to answer a question that I have for her as well.
Sure. So hang on, let me pull. Just going into the right document here. Okay, sorry, I'm looking at a Appendix F to the Stormwater Management Manual, which contains the rules and regulations of this committee. I was looking at that. I don't know if this addresses Ms. Jones' question, but one of the criteria that you're able to take into consideration is the susceptibility of the proposed facility and its contents. No, I'm sorry, wrong condition. The importance of the services provided by the proposed facility to the community. So it seemed to me that the ability to use the greenway maybe fell under that criteria. I'm sure that either Ms. Harrison or Councilmember Gamble could speak to the importance of the facility of the greenway to the community. Also, I believe it was one of the 5 items at the beginning, maybe number 4, that you all asked to have addressed as a part of this reconsideration of this variance request, was in terms of addressing the comments of Ms. Harrison with regard to greenways, which I believe is what that letter is designed to do.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Right, so Ms. Harrison, can you comment on anything that you feel like may be, I guess, in this current proposal that might contradict the characteristics that were worked out in that letter? And then my second question for you is, do you have any concerns about the temporary closures of the greenway that the applicant has noted with some of their submissions for this proposal?
Sure, happy to do that. I don't think that anything in the letter conflicts with what we're dealing with today. And the hope is that it's addressed some of those issues and concerns that I had initially. It does provide a future easement, the ability to have a future easement to continue the greenway. It addresses usage and closures of the greenway, which is a major concern to Metro Parks. Currently, Metro Parks holds 2 easements on the property, greenway conservation easements. Those do not restrict the closure of the greenway in any way. So this agreement that we have been working with on the applicant does address that in some ways, and that with an effort to always keep a path open from one point of the site to the other, but not into, it allows for part of the trail to be closed. And it restricts, for the most part, it restricts the number of days it can be completely closed, whereas right now there are no restrictions on that. It also defines a length of time per event that the trail can be closed, which is not currently a part of that easement. So while it doesn't completely unaffect the greenway, this project, it does at least improve the current allowances in that greenway conservation easement.
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Okay, so I think that clarifies that we're at least on those issues, we seem to have some synergy. There may be some finer aspects to that staff may want to ask us to consider. At this point, I'm seeing kind of 2 major issues, and then I'm going to go to Mr. Mishu and Mr. Hunt. But the 2 issues here to me appear to be is whether or not the mitigation is adequate, and I'm not convinced it's adequate to give the public a greater confidence and a greater result that we're offsetting new and continued alterations of these buffers and these areas where parking is taking place in association with these buffers. And then the second point is concerning these stilt constructed bungalows in what the applicant has characterized as predominantly the Zone 2 buffer. So I'd ask the other committee members to be thinking about those 2 issues in particular. I'm inclined to ask the applicant to increase the mitigation. Significantly might be a harsh sounding word, but a lot more than what they're proposing, but not as much as what we would find in natural conditions. And then to address this issue of whether or not the mitigation also addresses properly the construction of stilt-built bungalows in the Zone 2 and whether or not that's appropriate. But let me go back to Mr. Mishu, since he was kind of in queue before Mr. Hunt, and ask him to address this issue of the flood peaks and documentation associated with that.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, please.
Fantastic. This is Steve Issue. I'm at the Sunny West Conference Room. And Logan Bowman is also in the conference room with me. There is no need to put in any condition about peak flows. That is something that's in the manual, and we will address it at staff level. And we'll make sure that the construction plans do reduce flows from the 2 to the 100-year events. It's a standard thing that we do with all construction drawings, and it's not being requested here. So we don't foresee that this is to be an issue, and we will handle it at staff level.
Thank you, Mr. Mishu. So I want to provide a shout out to the public who, particularly those who provided comments expressing concerns about not seeing those documents, and those who may have this concern just from listening to these proceedings that this is, as Mr. Mishu just said, this is a fairly common consideration for these types of proposals, They're typically done with quite a bit of empirical analysis. The documentation has to be provided in a way that satisfies the regulations and staff's professional supervision of that. And that's typically why we don't provide every document in these proceedings or in the public hearings that are processed, because that's what we hire staff to do for us. And so I want to encourage you that due to open records laws, you probably have every right to contact Metro Stormwater to ask for clarification of those, to go by and visit their office and learn more about the process, see how they calculate it. So I want to encourage you to do that. And so at this time, that satisfies my concern about the documentation and the process that's going to be addressed. Yeah, please, Mr. Bishop.
Just one housekeeping note.
Yes.
A public records request would go to the Metro Clerk's office.
Okay. Okay. All right. So public records requests go to Metro Parks and not to Stormwater. So
clerk.
Clerk, Metro Clerk. Okay. I thought that sounded, I thought I misunderstood that. So why would Parks review that? But I trusted you in my ears. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Bishop. All right, Mr. Hunt, you're recognized.
Thank you, sir. As the committee begins deliberation, I had one quick point I wanted to bring up. Normally on variance cases, the way compliance is governed and overseen is via the grading plans that are approved for a site. So if the site is built per approved plans, it meets the condition of the variance. When and if the committee decides to issue a variance for this particular site activity, part of what is being proposed is an ongoing set of site management activities, such as the aeration and the repairs of the area and sorts of things. And as such, staff would ask the committee consider incorporating any of those elements that go into their decision to approve into the decision letter, so there can be good transparency and everyone is aware of what the requirements are and there's some basis as far as what the expectations are going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. In regard to, and I really appreciate that statement, because if you professionals don't remind us of what you need to properly execute these decisions, the decision letter is one of those tools that helps you all execute clearly the commission's approved motions and policies. We can't remember to do that if we don't always know that's what you need. So appreciate that. But along that same line, Mr. Hunt, how do you suggest we deal with this issue of the unresolved definition of events that Ms. Doan referred to earlier?
That has been, it's sort of an apples and oranges consideration with the site. They have to pursue certain community-based approvals, and sometimes that is reconciled with the stormwater approvals, and sometimes it's not. I think I would certainly defer to the site, but it would appear that it would be something that the committee would want to incorporate into their decision making, how often and the number of events. But we have always gravitated back toward what the first Stormwater Management Committee variant discussed, knowing that later there were other approvals by other entities as far as how often the site could actually just hold events as it related to the community.
Thanks, Mr. Hunt. Yeah, in all fairness to the applicant, that's one of the things, I've been on the committee long enough to remember that's one of the things that has come up consistently is that they don't seem to know how events are defined. We've admitted that we don't necessarily have documentation on how an event is defined and how frequently that happens. And part of our challenge here is that you know, if you get more frequent events, you get more frequent compaction and disruptions, which hopefully are being mitigated by those factors that you described from the previous variants, the aeration and so forth. And then now we're also getting more frequent and more intense rain events, which coincide with these variances, which these variances are likely not the direct cause of the climate change that we're experiencing right now. So that's sort of a double whammy. So frequency and intensity does matter. So I'll throw that out for the committee as sort of a third item of consideration: mitigation, frequency of events, and the issue of the bungalows in the zone 2. So I'm gonna close my questions and my comments with this last statement to the applicant, particularly since the public brought this up, and that concerns the nature of hardship. Mr. Haas, we've fairly frequently been reminding applicants that the state appeals court has made explicit how a hardship is defined. Previously, we relied upon comparative conclusions that were associated with zoning cases. But having had a case go to the state appeals court in Tennessee, they have verified that a hardship can only be defined as the unique characteristics of a site. So your site would have to be basically a site anomaly in Davidson County. It would have to have characteristics that the buffer ordinance could not have anticipated. I'm not sure that's the case. I don't think that's the case. And so technically you really don't have a hardship. So what we're really trying to focus here on is whether or not you can mitigate your request for a variance. And that's what enables us to give you a little bit of flexibility, is the extent of your mitigation. So if you'll be thinking about that while we deliberate, I'm going to now ask the committee members to weigh in individually on where they stand on these 4 points that I just mentioned. Mitigation, do you think we need more? Whether or not we should incorporate a definition of events. We could go back to the definition of the first variance and clarify that a bit more. Whether or not we should approve the construction of peer constructed bungalows and any other details that you think we should address in this proposal. Ms. Maddox.
I have to leave here in just a few seconds, but I just want to ask a quick question. I guess
I apologize for misleading you that I thought we'd be done by now.
That's okay. My big question is, what's the hardship for putting the bungalows in the buffer? I'm just not seeing the hardship there. I can see the hardship on the required disturbances for the widening of the roads and utility installation, but I would just like more clarification on why the bungalows have to be there.
And Mr. Haas, it would be helpful if you could state why those sites are unique. Not an economic hardship, not an engineering hardship, not a architectural design hardship, but is there something about that site that the buffer ordinance could not have anticipated that gives us a reason why we should grant a variance to build the bungalows in that area?
Yes, certainly. I think the most unique thing about this site and this scenario is that a variance was previously granted to disturb these buffer areas. Those areas will no longer be utilized in the same way. So you saw the images and the pictures of in some cases, the previous owners did grading work in there. They've used railroad ties. They're falling into the stream. They're falling down the hill. we want to improve that. One of the ways to make that improvement possible is by utilizing those already disturbed areas to implement these portions of these 4 bungalows. So again, we're decreasing that area that's disturbed. If we are not permitted to do that, then most likely it will remain in place and stay as is. They'll take the roofs off, but the rest of that will stay as is. We think we can do a better job than that. So certainly we can do that as part of our mitigation. We'll include that bank. I did want to point out also that one of the reasons these are on stilts is so that we can also plant underneath these bungalows. So we will be restoring vegetation underneath the bungalows as well. I don't know if that answers your question, Ms. Maddox.
Yes, it does.
If I can add one thing, I'm sorry. Part of that location for those bungalows too, as opposed to pushing them back out of the buffer, is the fire marshal has required that he have access to within 150 feet of these units. That's where, if you could go to the next slide, Rebecca, the next slide shows where that emergency access is, that light green area, that puts those bungalows at 150 feet from there for access, as opposed to increasing a crossing and doing a vehicular bridge over the unnamed tributary.
So it sounds like, Mr. Haas, this gives you the economic wherewithal and incentive to do something you otherwise wouldn't have to do. In terms of the repairs to the buffer.
Yeah, to some respects.
Okay, all right. All right, Mr. Dale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got cut off there for a while, so I didn't get to hear some of what you talked about. But as far as the bungalow is concerned, and you may have discussed this when I was not able to hear, that exhibit that we're looking at right now, I went and looked, I put up Metro's GIS. It looks like the flood elevation, you can see it on here. Oh my goodness, did I get cut off again?
No, you're good.
Okay. All right. It's important for the people in this community to know that these bungalows are outside of the floodplain. Has that been discussed?
No, sir, but we are fairly confident that they're in the zone 2.
No, they're in the zone 2, but I think that, you know, the concerns from the community are flooding and people getting in there, not being able to get out. But it looks like to me, just based upon this topography that I'm looking at, the piers themselves are probably 10 feet above the flood elevation. So the piers are not placed there for flooding purposes. They're placed there just because of the topography. Is that correct, John?
Yes, that's correct. And the floodplain is shown on that graphic. It's the dark dashed line.
Yeah, I just think it's important for the people that are listening to understand that, because I know they're concerned about, and their main concern, quite honestly, is safety and health of the public. And so these bungalows are well above the flood elevation, which is indicated by that dark line. And so that's one of the items that I think, Dodge, you had wanted to talk about based upon these 3 or 4 points.
Yes, sir.
I didn't know if that had been discussed. I just wanted to point that out.
That's excellent clarity. Thank you. That's exactly what we need to hear, Mr. Dale. Okay, would Ms. Ronette Adams Taylor and Ms. Stokes, would you all like to weigh in? Yeah, Ms. Stokes, you recommend.
Yes, thanks. So yeah, I have a concern about the frequency of events because it does seem there is some confusion. But I did want to ask, I certainly appreciate the clarification on the summary of the existing variances, the changes you're going to make to those. But in relation to the new variance request, we talked about the bungalows, the street widening, but I also see in the packet, and I guess I want to understand the disturbance of the floodway, zone 1, zone 2 buffers for the demo, removal, and stabilization of a pool. And I don't think we really talked about that one today.
Yeah.
So I guess I just want to understand.
Yeah, I apologize. That one was brought to our attention possibly in the community meeting, and it was included in the variance. I apologize for that amendment, but there is an existing residence that was purchased that has a swimming pool, an older swimming pool, and we are requesting to remove that swimming pool. And it would certainly be considered within any calculations of cut and fill within the floodway or floodway buffer. You'd have to zoom in quite a bit there. It's an old log house. But thank you for bringing that up. But yeah, you know, if it's denied, we can leave it there as a whole if we have to. But we think the best thing for everyone involved, including the community, which will have a section of walkway in proximity to this, that we remove the pool.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I just want to make sure that came out in the discussion. And then I do think there was a question you might be able to answer. One of the citizens was asking about they maybe hadn't heard the tentative construction schedule. I don't know what your
the construction schedule is subject to approvals.
Okay, so you're ready to go if you were to get approval.
We're ready to go, but depending upon when those approvals come, the seasonal work that is out here, as you can imagine,
right.
You know, something that hasn't been mentioned, we've got some pretty specific restrictions from the site plan in terms of when we can move dirt in the floodway and how we move dirt and so on. Yeah, we would not anticipate beginning potentially until early spring of next year, and we're probably talking about an 18-month construction schedule.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Ms. Ronette Adams-Taylor, would you like to weigh in? I think we've heard from everyone.
No, I think all of my concerns were addressed. I agree. I think we definitely need clarification as it relates to what is defined as an event. But the question regarding the bungalows, thanks for bringing that up, because that was one of my main issues. Mr. Haas, I do have a question. Do you all have plans for that pool if it is removed? Are you putting there, you're just filling, or what are your plans for that space?
We would return it to green space. I mean, yeah, it will be lawn or plantings, but yeah, it'll be green space. It'll be pervious.
Perfect. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so Mr. Hunt, do you have your hand raised for a reason, or is that a prior signal?
I do not. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. Yeah, they tell me I have the ability to unraise someone's hands, but I don't. So, okay. So, so here we are. Mr. Haas, I want to go back to this question of mitigation. How much more mitigation would you be willing to volunteer today to kind of address some of the public's concern that you are helping to create some offsetting sponginess on site?
I've been texting back and forth, if you've seen me on screen, with my client to get his approval. And I have his approval to add 100 more trees, which is that calculation that you threw out, 50 trees per 10 acres. That would get us to 50% of that calculation and more, you know, double, more than double, not quite double what we have in there, but 250 trees total. So it's 102 more trees.
Okay. All right. So, staff, are you satisfied with this recent proposal for mitigation? Adding additional 102 trees. Ms. Doan usually responds to these types of opportunities.
This is Rebecca Doan. It is up to the Stormwater Management Committee to decide whether or not they feel the mitigation provided is adequate for the additional disturbances they're looking for in the buffer.
Yeah, we understand that. We're just asking for your all's opinion, your technical opinion.
Well, the purpose of applying a buffer to redevelopment properties is for us to gain buffers and water quality where we did not have it before. So by continuing to mow areas that are redeveloped, we aren't really making the gains we like to see in water quality from redevelopment of properties. So I don't think I can really go against what our principles are as far as water quality and establishing floodways and floodway buffers as natural areas. Mowing and parking in those areas does not contribute to improved water quality.
Okay, that's basically what I thought. And you know, to add a little extra clarity to where we are on this, you know, the original variances for this site were approved a long time ago. And I think it's fair to say in recent years, we've kind of tightened up our expectations for disturbances to buffers, and have required a little more intensive mitigation where we needed it. Most of the time, we've just avoided the impacts by not granting the variance. But what's different about this site is that these are temporary activities in terms of physical objects being located in the buffer. But the problem is they leave long-term compaction and long-term water quality problems, as Ms. Doan was just addressing. So, you know, we have tended to try to be collaborative in the past about prior granted variances, particularly as they add improvements that are less than ideal, just because we have had a prior effort that we're trying to grandfather in. That is a typical response to deal with prior expectation type standards. And so the applicant has proposed fewer impacts, but they are, as Ms. Doan, I think, very accurately stated, they're not ideal. So, so Mr. Haas, do you have any additional mitigation proposals, just in case that would but certainly be in your interest to optimize that as much as you can?
Well, again, I think part of that mitigation is if the committee is more comfortable with a defined plan on how often each of these fields are used and how often they're moved, and maybe even aeration more often. I don't know necessarily that would help, but we would be fine with that. We think that some of this is manageable upon our own and in our own best interest. If there are compaction tests that need to be done, we can do that and take steps. I think understanding about those becoming more stringent, we understand that as a result, we've reduced these areas. You know, what I would like to say is the stream bank restoration is part of our mitigation as well. 400 lineal feet of that. We are, it's not quite mitigation, but we are building a bridge as part of this agreement if this item's to be approved, which is nearly $300,000 that Metro had previously agreed to build but ran out of money. We're going to build it. So we're doing quite a bit of mitigation for the property as a whole, we think, to a great advantage to the community as a whole to be able to use these greenways.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Haas. And I'll just make a couple other comments. You know, the kind of mitigation that we're describing with trees and shrubs here tends to be a little more reliable than sort of temporal mitigation techniques like aeration. Just to go back to that farming example I gave earlier, the way a farmer would deal with compaction is that they would they would attach a chisel plow behind an extremely high horsepower tractor to run iron chisels into the ground up to 3 feet deep. And I doubt you all are aerating those areas that deeply to restore some of the compaction that's occurring. So anything you can do to enhance vegetative mitigation, that could be best. So are you gonna stick with your current mitigation proposal before we begin to put together a motion?
When you say the current, do you mean the 250 trees?
Yes, or the additional 102 that you proposed. Do you want to increase it any more?
I'd have to check with my client.
Would you mind doing that just to give us a little extra benefit out of what essentially is an opportunity to try to move forward with a better proposal that may not be ideal if we had a chance to review this from a fresh start?
Yeah, I'm checking with him right now.
Okay. All right. Anybody else got a comment they want to share? Any other committee members?
While I'm waiting for his response, if it pleases the chairman, if we could talk about the number of events and the steps that we went through, I'd very much like for Councilwoman Gamble to comment on this if she could, if she's still on the phone.
One thing that we typically do also, Mr. Haas, is that when it comes to the finer points of these types of variances, we've often tended to direct the applicant to work out these details with staff. I'm not sure, based upon the amount of time that I've spent on this committee, which is several years now, I'm not sure that we have the interest or the capacity to prescribe that level of detail. So that's my initial feedback to you, is that it's very likely we're gonna direct you to work that out with staff.
We are fine with that if staff is fine with that, and I have gotten approval on 100 more trees.
Thank you, sir. All right. Okay. Anybody have a motion? We need a motion to approve or deny or defer. Those are our normal three options. All right, Ms. Ronette Adams-Taylor.
Just want to make sure we're approving as is, which I'm fine with, but with in addition to the 100 trees for mitigation purposes as well. Is that correct? We adding that?
He's 200 true.
200, I'm sorry.
202, Mr. Haas.
Yeah, 202.
202.
All right.
Is that correct?
Yes.
That sounds like it, yes.
Okay. Well, let me see if I can tackle this. I make a motion to approve the variance as presented by applicant with addition to adding 202 trees for mitigation purposes.
Now, Ms. Adams-Taylor, would you also be willing to integrate into that the definition of events will be resolved between the applicant and staff?
That's correct. And let me amend my motion to include that we will ask the applicant work with the staff to create a definition of event so that everyone is clear.
Okay. Now, I do remember a couple other items being suggested by staff, so we'll revisit those during the discussion. So we have a motion's been made to approve the variance as presented with an alteration of mitigation for 202 trees, and that the number of events and the definition of events will be worked out between the applicant and staff. Mr. Dale, you recognize?
Can I add amendments to that motion? Do I need a vote in favor first?
If you don't mind, let's proceed with the current motion, then we'll deal with amendments next.
Okay, so I'll second the motion.
All right, motion been made, properly seconded. All right, and so now we're open for discussion. So Mr. Dale, if you'll hold your other amendments, let me ask Ms. Harrison to comment, and then Ms. Costonis. So Ms. Harrison.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a reminder about the letter of agreement regarding.
I had a feeling that would be one of the amendments. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Ms. Costonis.
That was my comment as well.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. All right. And Mr. Hunt, would you remind us what you asked us to consider? So we currently have the opportunity to add amendments to the motion that would include the parks letter. What other proposals do you remember asking us to consider?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I had mentioned the operational elements. I think they were on page 6 of Mr. Haas's presentation, some of the operational elements, frequencies, in particular, if the committee had any preferences in that regard. I would also say, as it relates to staff working out the number and definition of events, the frequency of those might be helpful for staff to know as we work with the applicant on arriving at a definition.
All right, thanks, sir. That makes perfect sense to me.
Thank you,
Let's
sir.
hope it makes sense to someone who will make a motion for an amendment. So, Mr. Dale, you're recognized.
So I'm going to add, discuss amendments I'd like to add, see if anybody has any problem with these.
All right, please.
And I think that these amendments may already be things that we would require already, but I think from the community's perspective, it's a part of our variance, it's helpful. So the first thing I would like to suggest is that upon approval of any new grading applications, that there'll be no increased discharge allowed into Whites Creek. I think we wouldn't allow that anyway, but I think it's important to add this if possible. That any new stream crossing must include a no-rise within the limit, a no-rise outside of the limits of the contiguous property. So properties upstream or downstream of this site would not be affected by any increased height. We would probably require that also as well. That the applicant be allowed to remove debris that obstructs the flows within the creek due to the stormwater event. That the bungalows be allowed within the zone 2 buffers. However, the footprint must be outside of the 100-year floodplain. That the applicant shall provide an additional 200 trees of mitigation to be worked out with staff. That the letter of agreement with conditions from parks be incorporated as part of the conditions, and that work with staff on the number of events and frequency of events to be held on site.
Okay, would you mind repeating the first one there, Mr. Dale?
Basically, I think they would have to do this anyway, but I just want to add that upon approval of new grade permit application, that no increased discharge be allowed into Whites Creek.
Upon approval of what? Construction plan?
New grading application. Any new grading application.
New grading. Any new grading application. Okay.
Any new grading application. I think that they would have to do this anyway. They're going to impound water within their site outside of the flood, outside of getting to the creek. There shouldn't be. What they're saying is there'll be no increase in discharge. So I don't see any harm in adding in this note unless someone with the staff or the applicant has a problem with it. But I would just simply state that upon approval of new grading applications, that there shall be no increased discharge to be allowed into White Creek. That would be the first thing that I would ask. Second, again, would be that any new stream crossing must include a no rise outside of the limit of the contiguous limits of the property. So, you know, anywhere out, once they go beyond their property, adjacent to any other properties, there should not be any rise in flood elevation. And they may have some new stream crossings. It doesn't affect anything that exists. This should just be new. That the applicant be allowed to remove debris that obstructs the flows within the creek due to stormwater events. So they wouldn't be going out there and taking things out that were natural. They would only be removing things that were the result of a flooding event.
Okay.
That the bungalows be allowed within the Zone 2 buffer. However, the footprints must be outside of the 100-year floodplain, which they are. But I think it's important to just put this in our condition, that the applicant provide an additional 200 trees of mitigation, locations to be worked out with staff.
202, Mr. Okay.
Yeah, that the letter of agreement from Metro Parks indicating the conditions from the Parks letter, whatever those conditions are, be incorporated into this approval, and that the applicant work with the staff on the size and frequency of events.
Okay. All right. All right. So we have a motion to amend the original motion with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 conditions just stated by Mr. Dale. And Ms. Gilbert, we'll be glad to work with you on making sure, I'm sure Mr. Dale will be glad to work with you on making sure the exact language of his motion as verbally presented gets into the final minutes. There were some particular keywords and key phrases like upon approval, any new grading plans, any new stream crossings, any new bridges, those types of references. Those keywords we need to be very careful about. All right. So we have a motion. Is there a second on the amendment to the original motion? All right, Ms. Ronette Adams Taylor.
I second.
All right, motion's been made and properly seconded on the amendment to the original motion. Is there any discussion or any clarification needed as to what we're voting on? We're voting on the amendment to the original motion. All right, seeing none, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. We have a roll call on the screen. All right, so we're going to proceed to vote. This is the amendment on the motion. All right, to approve the variance with conditions. Ms. Stokes, how do you vote? Yes or no, or abstain?
Yes, on the amendment to the original motion.
That's exactly right. Thank you. We're voting on the amendment to the original motion. Mr. Dale?
Yes, on the amended motion.
All right, Mr. Dale, yes to the amended motion. Ms. Maddox? Oh, she's not here. All right, so she is not present. All right, Ms. Adams Taylor?
Yes.
All right. Yes to the amendment to the original motion, and Mr. Galbraith votes yes. I'm Dodd Galbraith. All right, so if you'll designate my vote at the top, please. All right, thank you. All right, so the amendment to the motion passes. So now we're back to the original motion to approve the variance with the conditions that were stated by the amendment. Is there any discussion on the original motion to approve the variance as amended by these conditions? Mr. Dale, do you have a comment?
No, I don't comment. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Ms. Doan, do you have a comment?
This is Rebecca Doan with Metro Water. I do have a comment that might be a good starting place to add in here. Let me try to share this screen. So we have already been in discussions with Fontenelle about numbers of events and event definition. These are notes from a meeting we held April 25th of 2018. You'll see that item 4 that we requested, or Rebecca Jones said that Metro Water wants to place a limit on the number of events that Fontenelle can hold in the floodway and buffer. She stated that the number would be 36 events per year, including the 18 allowed seasonal performance entertainment venue events as defined by the SP ordinance. And Mark Oswald at that point stated that Fontenelle would be open to the idea of the cap of 36 events. We then proceeded to try to define an event and did not come up with a conclusion. My proposed event definition was an event includes the parking of passenger vehicles or motorcycles in the buffer, the placement of temporary structures such as event tents, crowd control fencing, and temporary furniture in the buffer also constitutes an event. Each day of the aforementioned activity in the buffer counts as an event. For example, a festival with tents in the buffer that took a day to set up and last for 3 consecutive days would constitute 4 event days. Any other items beside those listed above should not be placed in the buffer without the permission of MPDES staff. Food trucks and portable toilets shall be located outside the buffer. So that is where we got to with a number of events discussion and the definition of events.
Okay. All right, Mr. Haas, do you want to comment on any of that now?
The only thing I will say is that all of that discussion was with previous ownership and it's under a different SP. We're going to work with Stormwater on this. I promise you that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. If you reach a point where you can't work it out, you can always come back to us. But I want to encourage you to try to work it out with them. Okay.
I understand.
All right. Okay. All right, Ms. Doan. It sounds like it's a little too complicated for us to resolve at this time.
This is Rebecca Doan of Metro Water Services. It would help if we had a little direction as to, because we have been working things out with Fontenelle for a very long time, and
yes,
and we don't want to end up back at the committee. Not that we don't love this time we spend here together. So if you would offer a little bit of direction as to possibly a cap on number of events, that would be exceptionally helpful for staff.
Thank you. Thank you. It's all I can say, and I'm not speaking for all members of the committee, but it is a technical understanding that we're seeking here. So would any other committee members like to weigh in on whether or not they feel like we should put a cap within this motion? We do have staff input that it should be 36 events. As to the other details, we could leave those up to staff to resolve.
Chairman Galbraith, if you'll allow me.
Yes, please, Mr. Haas. Yeah, anything you can give us to make this easier and quicker to resolve will.
Yeah, I agree with you that I do not believe it's going to be resolved here because, again, I have a different client now. I can tell you we worked very hard on the SP on trying to define events and what were events and what could happen. In our previous stormwater management plan, we reached the point with stormwater that defined different tiers of events. So in other words, if it was certain things happening, that was a tier 1, doesn't really impact, doesn't really matter, tier 2, tier 3. And that's really where we got to that 36. But from my recollection, there was a written response to that email that Rebecca just pulled up that said we could not agree to that with that previous owner. So we want to work through it. We'll probably get the councilwoman involved, Councilwoman Gamble involved in that. But we were able to work through it with parks, and we'll be able to work through it with stormwater.
Well, it's just as a point of reference, Mr. mowed buffers that you can make to return it to an unmowed, spongy condition as you're negotiating for more flexibility, for more events, it'll have an offsetting effect. So I just want to encourage you to think in terms, and this was the same admonition I gave you when you were here last. I think I said, please come back with more sponginess, and you did, and we recognized we needed to double that because we're trying to listen to the community, and which also makes Mr. Dale's amendments, I think, very timely and very important. We're listening to the community by adding these other conditions. So all I can say at this time is, do any other committee members, commissioners have a direct request or want to make a motion for an amendment to put a cap on events as part of this motion? Or do you want to proceed with voting on the original motion as amended? Ms. Stokes.
I personally don't feel like I have enough information to put a cap on, so I'm comfortable proceeding with the original motion.
Okay.
And trusting that staff and the applicant will work together.
That sounds good. And I'll add a little levity here, Ms. Doan, since you have volunteered that you love working with the Stormwater Committee. Since you love it, you're welcome to come back if you all need to resolve this issue with us. So we're going to take you up on that opportunity. All right. So it sounds like we have a stated expectation that from an engineer on our committee that we're not really comfortable. So would anyone like to call for the question? The vote on the original motion as amended. Or if I don't see any discussion, I'll just initiate the vote myself. Any further discussion from any committee member? All right, seeing none, I'm going to initiate a roll call vote at this time. I'm going to ask for a yes or no or an abstention. And so at this time, again, please keep in mind we're voting on accepting the variance as presented with the conditions that we previously approved in an amendment to this motion. So how do you vote, Ms. Stokes? Yes, no, or abstain?
Yes.
All right, Ms. Stokes votes yes. Mr. Dale, please identify yourself clearly. We can't see you.
Yes, this is Roy Dale, and I vote yes.
All right, Mr. Dale votes yes. Ms. Maddox is absent. Ms. Adams-Taylor?
I vote yes.
All right, Ms. Adams-Taylor votes yes, and the chair, Dodd Galbraith, votes yes. So the motion passes as amended. Ms. Gilbert, please feel free to avail yourself of Mr. Dale's cooperation to articulate those. Of course, you have the recording as well, but feel free to get any clarifications from Mr. Dale. All right, so that concludes our single item of business for today. Do we have any other items of business? It looks like we have one on the agenda, ordinance BL 2020-424. So I don't have anything in the run of show that says who's going to comment on that. So
that would be Steve Mishu, and I'm hoping you could hear me.
We can, Mr. Mishu. Thanks, sir.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. So there was an ordinance that was that's pending at this moment, and it's going to change the way that we handle our. Oh, by the way, Steve Mishu, Metro Water Services. I'm at the Sunny West Conference Room with Logan Bowman, also of Metro Water. So there's a pending legislation that will change the way we handle our day-to-day activities within the Stormwater Management Committee, more so at staff level as we prepare your packages. The biggest change is that they're trying to move us to be more like what the zoning and other similar boards are doing, and it's going to require us to send a written notice to neighbors within 1,000 feet of the subject variance property. So we have created a letter, and we've tried to mimic as much as we can what the zoning letter would look like. And we've altered the checklist that we have, the internal checklist, to incorporate the changes and the other changes as we discussed in the past few meetings about going totally electronic. We have updated our sign information to where we will be providing the information for applicants for them to create their own signs and post. So just it's pretty much housekeeping notes for the most part for us internally. And I think there's the updated checklist. Hopefully you guys probably received the pending legislation, the changed checklist, the signed document, and the neighboring letter document probably late yesterday in your inbox. I believe third reading will happen sometime in October prior to the next committee meeting. So I am more than willing to accept any changes that anybody has. I think I'll probably need to move forward with the letter as it stands today. And if you guys, I don't know if Ms. Costonis says we have to vote on the letter, but we would probably need to do the letter before the next cases. So we'll probably have to use what we have. And if there's any corrections, we could make it for the next case. So a lot of information, not a lot of time for you guys to look at it. I am more than willing to try to help you guys with any questions that you have at this time.
So Steve, I guess my question would be, I guess since it's going up for third reading, that's usually a stronger assurance that it's headed towards passage. But does that give us any flexibility in terms of reviewing this letter? Or are you submitting this letter to Metro Council, or are you submitting it for public review? What? I guess I don't understand the process if it hasn't passed on third reading.
If the ordinance hasn't passed, that we are to have letters sent out to neighboring owners. Okay. So I would love for you guys to look at the letter and review it and make some comments. I don't think I have time at this moment to let you guys look at this and make corrections prior to the next meeting.
November, so we can change it after November if we.
I don't know why not. This is not unless legal advises me otherwise. This is a letter that's in like internal that that we would be using. Ms. Costonis may help us out whether this needs to go for a vote at a later time or whether this is a interior standard operating procedures and doesn't have to go for a vote. But I'm willing to entertain whatever options you guys like.
All right, Ms. Costonis, could you make whatever comments you'd like to make, and as well as address whether or not we should vote on this before the ordinance that created it passes on third reading?
Sure. I do not think it has actually passed on second yet. Steve can correct me if he's looked at this more carefully, but when I saw this on the agenda, I checked that the other day and it appeared to me that it had only passed on first reading. I think it was deferred on second, so it would kind of go back for further discussion before the council on second reading, which I assume would be this week. Excuse me, I guess it would be next week. I'm a little lost. So yes, we do have two council meetings in October, however, before the November committee meeting would occur. So it is indeed possible that it could pass before the November meeting. Sorry, Steve is just sending me something.
Yes. Yeah, my concern is I just don't want to get ahead of an individual voting member here. I don't want to get ahead of the Metro Council.
Yeah, now I am not sure that it is necessary for the committee to approve the form of the letter. I think it would be essential that the letter be sent out and that the conditions of the ordinance be followed and met. And you know, that would have to occur within the time frames before the November meeting, which is a little tricky because if it were to pass on 3rd, the second meeting in October would be October. The first meeting is October 5th, right? So the second meeting would be October 19th. Which, yeah, makes it pretty tight. Assuming the mayor signs immediately, then it would be adopted as of like October 20th, which is pretty tight to the, is the November meeting November 3? I have that right? Or is it November 5 also? I'm sorry, I need a calendar up in front of me apparently.
It's in the body of the email. I think it is November 3rd.
No, it's November 5th.
Yeah, I think it's November 5th. No, it is November 3rd.
What month am I looking at?
First Tuesday of November is November 3rd.
Oh, the first Tuesday, not.
Yeah, that's when they. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, the committee meeting will be. Sorry, the committee meeting will be Thursday the 6th.
Yeah, we may be thinking of that.
Council meeting in November. you know what? It is the 5th because of the elections. The council meeting is moved from the 3rd to the 5th with the elections as well.
Okay.
So everything is happening on the 5th, I guess. But so I mean, we would have you know, like 15 days, I guess, or 16 maybe, between when that becomes law and when the November meeting occurs. So I don't know if that is enough time, practically speaking, to get everything done that's required prior to the November meeting. I would defer to staff on that.
All right. Well, Mr. Mishu, I think it's fair to say we all really do appreciate you helping us stay in sync with the council, but, you know, I'm inclined as an individual, you know, not to want to act on this today, and one, until it's codified, and two, until, you know, everybody has a chance to review it more properly. So anybody else on committee have another opinion or comment or concern?
Mr. Chairman, there is one thing I did leave out.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the application and checklist, I think that's probably the most important thing so far. Mm-hmm. I have been, it's probably been a year, but Commission Member Anna Maddox and I have been working on the checklist for quite some time. Mm-hmm. So the application and checklist, I think you guys probably will want to vote on, but not today. I think the others are probably more for a, hey, absolutely provide comments. We'll try to adjust everything, but I'm not sure anything other than the application and checklist would need a formal vote on.
Okay. All right. So you're not asking for a vote on the checklist or the letter today, but you are asking for feedback.
Absolutely.
All right. Ms. Costones, did you want to say anything else?
No, I did leave my hand up by accident, but I will say that you are correct that it is possible that the council could further amend this ordinance before passage. So it might indeed be too early to adopt something.
Okay. All right. All right. Go ahead.
The window to make this happen after council passes it and for this to go into effect just doesn't award staff the luxury of waiting at that time to make the corrections. So we went ahead and started everything, and if there's corrections, it's much easier to handle right now than to wait for this to be approved at third reading and then go forth at that time.
Yeah, I think that's fine. We're just going to trust you to do that if that's okay, Mr. Mishu. All right. Okay. Any other comments or business? We do not need a motion to adjourn. So I'm gonna wait for about 10 seconds to see if anybody has another comment or concern before we adjourn the meeting. We have verified with Ms. Costones, is it still true that we don't need a motion for adjournment under the Executive Order 60, the new one?
Executive Order 60 doesn't speak to that specifically, but if you do not hold a roll call vote on adjournment and you still adjourn, I have a feeling that the governor will have no problem with that whatsoever.
Okay. All right. Any comments? Count of 3, 6, 9, 10. All right. So this is, I'll appreciate everyone's participation today, particularly the applicant working so hard with a long, difficult variance that's been going on for several years. Very much appreciate staff making this WebEx meeting a function technically as well as technology allows. And so we are officially adjourned. Thank you. Thank you to the public for participating as well.